Hi, hello, and welcome to It Could Have Been One Book, where I tell you about a series that could have been one book. Today we are discussing Ninth House and Hellbent, which I just finished Hellbent 5 minutes ago, and I have some thoughts on it. So let's just talk first about the first book, and then I'll talk about the second book. This is gonna have spoilers. Sorry, we won't be. So the first book is about this girl. Her name is Galaxy Stern. She also just goes by Alex. She is brought to Yale and basically does classes at Yale, but is also in this secret society called Lethe, which basically Lethe watches over all the other secret societies to make sure that the secret societies stay in check and don't do anything dumb. So that's basically her whole thing. She's kind of special because she can see greys, which are ghosts. So she can see them, talk to them, all of that. Darlington, her mentor, goes missing, and basically she is trying to figure out where he is. Along the way, this old-timey ghost is like, I'll help you find Darlington if you help figure out who murdered me and my wife. And she's like, I thought you murdered your wife. And he's like, classic mistake, didn't do that. So if you help figure out who actually murdered us, I will help you find Darlington. So basically that's most of the plot of the book. I didn't really like the first book, and I think most people felt okay about the first book and really liked the second book, which we'll get into. I didn't really like the first book. I only liked Darlington, and he wasn't even in it. It goes from past to present to past to present, and to Darlington's point of view to Galaxy's point of view, which is really confusing. Also, going around trying to solve this murder, doing Lethe crap. And then I was listening to this on audiobook, but the last 50 pages of this book, so many things happen. It is wild. I don't know why she saved it all for the end. Because for 90% of the book we're let's try and figure out how people died, wish we could get Darlington back from wherever he is, a pocket reality I guess. The last 50 pages are his wife isn't dead, she's actually been possessing bodies of wheel walkers this entire time, creating lots of energy, which is why all of this big energy is happening that the societies are feeding off of. And also, Darlington's not dead, he's not in a pocket reality, he was in hell, and now he's a demon, a gentleman demon. That's what they've been saying the whole time. A gentleman demon. That's Darlington. Wah! And then that's the end. Oh, and she can take ghosts and put them in her body and use their strength. And that's just the end. And so I was just listening to it on the train, and I was just what's happening? Where's this going? And why didn't all of this take the entire book to happen? Why was it happening in the last 50 pages? What? What? Darlington was my favorite character, and we only got glimpses of him when we flashed back to the past, and then we just got this cluster whop of her being time to go to hell to get Darlington, the gentleman demon. Anyway, so I found out that Hellbent was coming out, and I was like, I don't want to read it, but I also do want to read it because I do want to figure out more about Darlington because he was my favorite. I went to my little bookshop, an Exile in Bookville, which also, if you're in Chicago, go to Exile in Bookville. They're amazing. They're the loves of my lives. Guys, this could have been one book. Hear me out. The second book I actually had a really good time with for most of it, because a lot more is happening. Alex and Dawes go to hell with Turner and this dude named Trip. They all have to be murderers, which is a really weird requirement, and it's also weird that she's like, I know 4 murderers, let's go. But they go to hell to try and get Darlington, and then all of these wolves start attacking them, and the ritual stops, so they come back out of hell. There's this man who is like, if you do this again, I'll ruin you. He's gonna be relevant later. I can't remember what his name is, Alexander or something. Anyway, I just finished this 5 minutes ago. Alexander. We're gonna call him Alexander, just remember his name. Alexander is if you try to get Darlington back, there'll be a price to pay. So keep that in the back of your mind. But them going to hell, they bring back these vampires, which she goes to, there's this whole side quest, and there's just a vampire, and then she's just vampires are real, and I was like, vampires are real, and she's like, vampires are real, and I was like, okay, sure. And then it's never spoken of again. Until this, they're trying to get Darlington back from hell. They do a little ritual. Instead of getting Darlington back from hell, they half get him back from hell, so half of his soul is still trapped in hell, and then the other half is in his like mansion, and he's like half a demon, and he's just stuck in a circle, and he's like, you have to go and get the other half of my soul, or like the demon part of me is gonna be released on the world, and that will be really bad. So, also there's like this one line where where she's like, Darlington, like, you're naked in this circle, and they mention is glowing, and then it's just like not mentioned again. And I don't know why she put that in the book, but it's there and I can't stop thinking about it. So that happens. But anyway, so basically 90% of this book is just them trying to figure out how to go back to hell and get Darlington's soul so that the demon doesn't get released upon the world. Right? I think that's the basic premise, I would say. I actually did have a lot of fun with this book. I thought it was really silly and a good time all around. I think it made a lot more sense than the first book. There wasn't any like flashbacks in time. It was pretty standard, and I understood the world better. I understood the characters better, and I feel like it all made a lot more sense. All of the motives made a lot more sense. There was nothing jumping out, nothing doing crazy. Like, I liked that they were like, I liked the hell journey. I liked that they had to go back to hell. I liked that they had to like figure out all of these things. I thought it was fun. The last 100 pages, she kind of did the exact same thing that she did with the first book, where like we're on a little path and journey and like things are happening, but all of a sudden everything is happening. So this is where the spoilers come in. Basically like the night or something before they go back to hell to get the rest of Darlington's soul, she goes to visit Darlington. And Alexander Man, remember him? He's there. And she's like, why are you here? Like, what's happening? And he's like, oh, like I talked to the board and you're gonna get kicked out of Lethe, so wah wah wah. And then she like goes to visit Darlington and she realizes that Alexander is actually the demon of Darlington, and the Darlington in the circle is just regular Darlington, and that they've actually been like basically been sent on a riddle quest. So then she has to fight this Alexander Man who we thought was just a dude, but he's actually like a super powerful demon. And then he's like, and Darlington's like, you're a wheel walker, you can do whatever you want. So she opens a portal to hell and she tries to get Darlington's soul by putting it in one of his precious boxes, but that soul, that box gets crushed by the Alexander Man, who's now a rabbit. And then she's like, oh, I'm a wheel walker, I can do whatever I want. So she like pulls the half of Darlington's soul into her, and then she bursts into light, and she's so powerful. So she fights the rabbit and she goes back to the real world, but he follows her. And then she uses that magical power to like fight him off, and then she gives that part of his soul back to Darlington, and then the rabbit dude attacks Darlington, and then his cat Cosmo like just randomly appears, and the cat is also glowing. And the cat is like the protector of Darlington and apparently has been this whole time. And then they halfway defeat this demon man, but he'll be back, but he's defeated for now. And Darlington is now not really a demon, but also not really human, so he can like turn into his demon self, but he has like his full soul, and apparently now he's bonded to Alex, so he has to like obey everything she does, kind of. Also, his is no longer glowing, so let's go for that. I think his exact words were no longer glowing like a New England lighthouse. So that happens, and then they are still having problems with the like vampires that came from hell. I don't know if I talked about that, but basically when they left hell the first time, when Alexander stopped the ritual the first time, these things followed them, and they've been like feeding off of their sorrow, so they have to go back to hell to bring them back and trap them there. And then Darlington and Alex are like, things have to be equalized. We can't just leave hell. We must leave a murderer there because we took Darlington away. All must be equal. So then there's this other side quest that I'm gonna get to, but basically they trap an evil guy in hell and they trap all the demons in hell, and then they come out of hell. But then they realize that Alexander Rabbit Boy actually had some blood of Alex's and is using that because she's a wheel walker to keep the portal open to hell. Also, Trip went missing for a while, and now Trip is back, and he's like half a vampire, half a real person. So he like kind of wants to eat everyone, but he's a real chill dude. I mean, and if that makes sense to you, God bless you, you are smarter than I. I was devouring this book. I read like 300 pages of it yesterday alone, and the last like 100 pages of this book, I was just sitting there like every 2 minutes I needed to take a breath because I was just like, what is happening? It went from like 4.2 stars for me to like 3 point maybe 6. I couldn't. And I'm kind of annoyed that she did the exact same thing that she did in the first book, you know? Like, I feel like it's weird that she took the ending of the first book and went, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm just gonna do a crazy twist that makes no sense, and then 20 million things are gonna happen, and then the book's gonna end on a cliffhanger. I didn't like that. I did really like this book. I thought we got a lot more of like the characters and everything. I liked that Darlington was back. Love Darlington, think he's so great. Thought it was kind of fun that they made him a demon. I don't know, I kind of vibed with it. It was kind of a vibe. You know, I think he was too nice in the first one. Let's make him edgier. Give him horns. Give him a glowing dick. Why not? It's Fantasyland. I also didn't know that this was written by the same person who wrote Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone, which I think, honestly, now that I know that, it makes sense, honestly, almost. It could have been one book, so let's discuss how we scrapbook this together. I would say keep the world building and gentleman demon part from the first book and scrap the rest. The first book, I think, was just thrown out into the world. It made no sense. I really didn't like it. I'm glad that I picked the second one, but I almost didn't want to. I would say in this book, get the world building, and then the whole side plot where her old drug dealer, drug lord man from LA is like, if you don't do what I need you to do, I'm gonna kill your mom. So she has to like go use her like ghost power strength to like find these guys for him and like threaten them so that he can get his money that he's owed. And then she is sent to this vampire's house and she has to fight this vampire, and then she doesn't get away, and then the vampire isn't mentioned again for like another 300 pages. Let's get rid of that plot line. I think the only reason that plot line is there is because in the end, he's the one that she traps in hell. She's like, you needed a murderer. Here's an evil murderer. Send him off to hell. Bada bing, bada boom, that storyline has been closed. That whole plotline made no sense to me. Why are we getting a drug lord involved? Let's just keep with one story, you know? So I would say scrap that. Keep the world building from the first book, scrap that whole storyline, scrap the vampires. They don't need to be vampires. They can just be demons after them and feeding off their energy, you know? Like, the whole vampire thing just didn't make sense to me because it literally just came out of nowhere and then wasn't really explained. So get rid of all of that. Keep Darlington being a demon. Make that the whole main thing. The last, like, 100 pages don't need to happen. But, like, we can have the demon battle at the end. I like that they had to go back to hell a second time. Like, why don't we just have them go back to hell a second time and then have to fight the demon dude there? And I will even allow Alex to have to swallow a soul and burst out in magical, powerful light. I'll allow it. It's very, like, and then she becomes the most powerful woman ever because she's a girl boss. It is very, you know, it's very fantasy, typical novel, but I'll allow it. But I'm totally down to start the second book with a, like, war against hell. That sounds fun. But just, like, all of the things that happened in the last 100 pages, I think we could just get rid of some of it. The entire time, they kept saying that she was a wheel walker, but I was like, I don't understand really what that is yet. I don't really grasp what it means, and I don't think she does either until the very end where she was like, I'm gonna go through this portal, and I'm gonna take Darlington's soul into mine. And I was like, sure, why not? But those are my thoughts. I did really enjoy the book. It just could have been one of them. I have a friend who's reading this right now and she hasn't even read the first book and she's still grasping most of what's happened. So like, it could have been one book. Those are my thoughts. I am excited for the next one because it is kind of a silly book. Honestly, if you don't take it seriously, I think you're gonna have a good time. That's what I've got for you guys. Would love to hear your thoughts as well because, you know, I'm sure maybe some people liked it more than I did or people understood that last 100 pages. Who's to say? I hope you have a great rest of your day and I will talk to you on the flippity flop. Peace, peace.